Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military with Samaru channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the Ceasefire Ukraine, where both the Russians and the Ukrainians during the previous night attacked each other with hundreds of drones. And this picture was published this morning by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see at least 160 ordinary and 4 jet drones that were attacking the Ceasefire of Russia. As you can see, there were several directions. The Ukrainians were attacking in the northern direction, the Ukrainians were attacking deep inside of the Ceasefire of the Russian Federation in the direction of the central part, and the Russians used hundreds of drones to attack in the southern direction. As according to information we have, as of the morning of the 2nd of April of 2026, as of the moment when I started making this video, we received just several videos from one city, the city of Ufa, which is located several hundreds kilometers from the area of Ukraine, so we can calculate. These videos took place on the Ceasefire of the city of Ufa, which is located 1,500 kilometers from the Ceasefire of Ukraine. And according to information we have, the Ukrainians attacked the city, and lots of explosions occurred. The Ukrainians, according to information we have, attacked the Novo-Ufimsky oil refinery, this one, the biggest one in this part of Russia. And here we received videos that were published by different sources. In this video we can see the fire that took place on the Ceasefire of this oil refinery, which means that the Ukrainians most likely managed to hit this industrial zone. Here we can see probably the same object, the same fireplace, but from another angle, very huge black smoke over this oil refinery. And we received lots of videos from the city itself. So in this video we can see the building that was damaged. The author of this video claimed that the Russians, while using air defense forces, attacked the building, but in this video we can see that most likely the building was also attacked by Ukrainian drone. Here we can see the same story from another angle. Here we can see the Ufa oil refinery also from another angle, which means that the refinery was hit. Most likely the refinery wasn't damaged significantly, but was hit. The Russians from their side attacked the Ceasefire Ukraine with hundreds of drones as well, and overnight, according to information we have, the Russians used 172 drones to attack the Ceasefire Ukraine. But it is very important to calculate not just the drones that the Russians used during the previous night, because the Russian attack started on the evening of the 31st of March of 2026, and I would like to remind you that during the previous 24 hours, the Russians launched at least 3 waves of attacks. During the first wave, the Russians used 339 drones. During the second wave, the Russians used 361 drones. And during the last or overnight wave, the Russians used 172 drones. So in total, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians used 872 drones to attack the Ceasefire Ukraine. As for the first 2 waves of attack, as we discussed during the previous video, the Russians were mainly attacking the southwestern and the western parts of Ukraine. We discussed the drones, we discussed the roads of attacks, what exactly the Russians were attacking, how the Ukrainians were trying to bring down Russian drones. And as for the overnight attack, according to information we have, the Russians were attacking the southeastern, eastern and the northeastern parts of Ukraine. So we received this morning a report that the Russians attacked the city of Pavlograd, and a very heavy explosion took place on the territory of this settlement. It seems that the Russians attacked a chemical plant of the city of Pavlograd, and according to different sources, the Ukrainians used these chemical plants in their cruise missile program. Another important territory is the Russians attacked the city of Kharkiv and the Kharkiv region. The sources reported that explosions were recorded on the territory of the city, the village of Zmiev. Here we can see the moments when the Russians struck a building on the territory territory of this settlement. As for the city of Kharkiv itself, we have this picture, and here we can see a train that was destroyed by the Russians during the night as a result of a drone attack. So as you can see, the Russians continue attacking the logistics of the armed forces of Ukraine, and the most important, the Russians are focused on locomotives of the Ukraine and the state of Ukraine itself. Furthermore, another explosion, another attacks took place in the Sumy direction. This time we're talking about the settlement of Bandari. Here we can see that the Russians attacked some warehouse, probably some farms or warehouses or ammo depot, and as a result of attack, the entire building and the entire complex was completely destroyed. And after all these attacks and during these attacks, the president of the Ukraine made a very important statement. He said that after today's Iran drone strike, that there will be no Easter ceasefire. At the same time, he continues discussing the issue of a ceasefire with the United States, according to Ukrainian media. The Russians also made a statement regarding Zelensky's proposal on the Easter ceasefire. The Russian foreign minister said that such initiatives are another PR move aimed at replenishing armed forces of Ukraine losses and preparing for further military actions. The Putin's special aide Ushakov emphasized that if Zelensky really decided to withdraw troops from Donbas, this would open up prospects for resolving many issues and would allow to consider the question of ending hostilities. But the thing is that Zelensky, as of now, is interested only in temporary ceasefire, temporary truce, Easter truth, but even according to his latest statements, he is not considering this situation anymore. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of updates, and the most important updates are coming from the Zaporizhzhia region, where the Russians continue their offensive operation in the direction of the city of Orekhov, and where the Russians began their counter-offensive operation in many regions. First of all, let's talk about the western Zaporizhzhia direction. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. If you remember, according to different sources, several days ago, we colored these territories as a gray zone. They used to be under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, but somewhere in the end of March of 2026, we colored these territories as territories considered as a gray zone based on the reports that were published by different sources, and today we began coloring these territories back in Russian favor because we started receiving updates that the Russians during the previous 12 hours improved their positions, and the Russians are keeping advancing further in the northern direction. In this video we can see how Ukrainians were attacking positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in the northern parts of the settlement of Primorskaya. Now let's talk about the eastern Zaporizhzhia direction. Just yesterday we discussed that the Russians captured the settlement of Boykovo, and this information was confirmed both by the Minister of Defense and the Group of Forces East, and the Group of Forces East published a video where we could see how Russians were fighting for this settlement. And this morning we received additional updates that the Russians began a counter-offensive operation to the north of the settlement of Uspenovka. And these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 1st of April. As you can see, most of these territories to the north of the settlement of Uspenovka used to be considered as a gray zone of the territories under complete control of the armed forces of Ukraine, but today many territories were colored back in Russian favor. So this report was published by different sources. We have videos, we have different changes on the ground that were published by different reliable sources, and according to them, the Russians have begun their counter-offensive operation with the purpose to restore complete control over the territories they lost during the Ukrainian February and March counter-offensive operation that took place in the Zaporizhzhia direction. It seems that the Russians are tasked to regain control over the territories they lost, and most likely the Russians will try to recapture everything along this red line in coming weeks before the Russians, before the beginning of the major and the main offensive operation in the direction of the city of Orekhov. The Russians, first of all, are trying to improve their flanks before moving further in the direction of the city of Orekhov and the Orekhov agglomeration from the northeast. Now let's discuss the situation in the Dobropolye direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of updates and many pro-Ukrainian sources improved their maps and adjusted the maps in the area of the city of Pokrovsk based on the videos that were published by pro-Ukrainian sources. I would like to remind you that according to information we have, the armored forces of Ukraine sent 425th Separate Assault Regiment in the direction of the city of Pokrovsk with a significant number of vehicles, tanks and so on, and infantry, with the purpose to carry out a immediate counter-offensive operation, probably with just one purpose: to install the Ukrainian flag in the most northwestern part of the city. But according to many videos that were published by pro-Russian sources, this convoy was completely destroyed. The Ukrainians suffered huge losses and were forced to fall back. So we are not going to adjust the map in this area because one thing is clear: this counter-offensive operation from the Ukrainian side was repelled by Russians. At the same time, the Russians are keeping advancing in the area of the city of Belitska. These are the changes on the ground. Several sources, neutral mappers, added additional infiltration areas in this area, in the city, and according to different sources, the Ukrainians currently control just 50 or even 40% of the settlement of Belitska, and the Russians are keeping advancing, forcing the Ukrainians to fall back further in the northwestern direction towards the mine of Belitska. As for the Konstantinovka direction, additional changes on the ground were recorded in the central part of the city. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and in this video we can see how Ukrainians were attacking positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation in the central part of the settlement. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map. During the previous days, almost every single day, we were adjusting the territory in this area, so it seems that the Russians are breaking through Ukraine's defense in the central part of the city of Konstantinovka, and the Russians are about to establish complete control over the river of Krivoy Tarets, at least in its southern and the southwestern parts. The Ukrainians, most likely who are currently located in this pocket, in coming days or even hours would be forced to fall back from this territory, otherwise they would be caught by the Russians in cauldron and without any chances for evacuation. So the battle for the southwestern part of the city of Konstantinovka, it seems, is coming to its logical end. Now let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Slaviansk. During the previous night, the Russians attacked several temporary deployment points of the armored forces of Ukraine with ground drones. The Ukrainians, according to information we have, carried out a counter-offensive operation between the settlements of Kriva Luka and Ozerna, but it seems that Ukrainians carried out a counter-offensive operation in this area just with the purpose to maintain a corridor for evacuation purposes, because currently there are lots of Ukrainians who were encircled by Russians on the territory of Krivaya Luka, and the only possible way for evacuation is to evacuate through the river of Seversky Donets in the northern direction, and then in the western direction towards the settlement of Piskunovka and Starodubovka. Furthermore, today we received the report that the Russians managed to improve their position significantly around the village of Starokaravan. Maybe today the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information, and then we will adjust the map in this area in Russian favor, which is going to be another step towards the end of the battle for the city of Liman itself. As for the Kupiansk and the northern directions, during the previous 12 hours, additional changes were recorded in the northeastern part of Kharkiv region. So these are the changes on the ground between the previous 2 days. This is the end of the 1st of April. This is the beginning of the 2nd of April. The Russians are keeping advancing towards the villages of Kolodezne and Grigorovka. So it seems that now the Russians are tasked to establish complete control over the layer of villages between the settlements of Figilivka and Grigorovka. So we are talking about these territories. The Russians will try to take these territories under complete control. Then the Russians will be able to concentrate additional forces before moving further in the direction of the settlements of Veliki Burluk and Shipuvata. As for the Volchansk direction, during the previous days, during the previous 24 hours, if you remember, the Russians reported they captured the settlement of Verkhnya Pisarevka. Today, neutral mappers clarified the situation by adding additional territories under complete control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. So now, one thing is clear, that based on this number of updates, we can make a conclusion that the Russians launched their major spring offensive operation. The pace of offensive operation is very big. 2 days in a row, we are making significant changes on the ground, and it seems that incoming for 30-50 days, we will continue doing the same, and then we will enter the summer military campaign where we'll see even bigger changes on the ground. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that in 2 months, the Russians, according to Zelensky, will publish new demands for a peaceful settlement of the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East, and first let's talk about different statements and things that happened in the United States of America. So first of all, and the most important, that yesterday the oil market closed with following prices: WTI $99.88 per barrel, Brent crude $101.80 per barrel, and Urals, this is the Russian sort of oil, $115.90 per barrel. So these are the changes before the oil market closed on the 1st of April of 2026, and this is a very important situation. I would like to point attention that these are the changes before the President of the United States of America made his statements. So the President of the United States of America several hours later made lots of statements about the situation in the Middle East, and let's discuss them in detail. So the most important thing is that we are going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2-3 weeks. We are going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. These are the most important statements of the President of the United States of America. I'm pleased to say that our core strategic objectives in Iran are nearing completion. So Iran is the most violent and thuggish regime on earth. We're now totally independent of the Middle East. We are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies. Iran's navy is gone. Their air force is in ruins. We could just take Iran's oil, but I'm not sure that the people in our country have the patience to do that, which is unfortunate. They want to see it end. People in the country sort of say, just win, you're winning so big, just win, come home. If the Iran deal doesn't happen, I'm blaming J.D. Vance. If it does happen, I'm taking full credit. The war was going to be over in 3 days, my prediction. So the President of the United States of America, with all these statements, is trying to tell us that most likely the United States of America will continue bombing and attacking Iran for the next 2-3 weeks, and most likely the United States of America is not going to unblock the Strait of Hormuz physically. So this is a very important situation, because while the President of the United States of America was making this speech, we could see this oil spiking during his speech. So the oil began rising significantly, and when the President of the United States of America finished his speech, we got the following prices for oil: WTI $105.93 per barrel, Brent crude $107.89 per barrel, Urals, Russian type of oil, $123. So in comparison with the previous day, oil prices rose for about $5 for every single sort. So $5, that's a lot. Even Russian oil rose significantly, which means that the investors and traders most likely understand that the United States of America may quit the territory of the Middle East without ending the war till its logical end, and the logical end for investors is the unblocking of the Strait of Hormuz, which most likely won't happen, at least won't happen under the flag of the United States of America. So the United States of America and the President Trump won't put their foot on the soil of Iran, and this is a very important situation. Most likely the United States of America will try to force the Persian Gulf states to put their foot on the soil of Iran, but as of the 2nd of April of 2026, we don't know who can do this. Basically, maybe the Middle East states are able to find forces and soldiers and manpower for these purposes, but they are not trained and the Iranian military forces are well trained. They have a lots of instructors from the Church of Russia, from China, and probably they will be more well trained in comparison with the soldiers or possible manpower from the Middle East states, which means that a possible ground operation without the involvement of the United States of America could start not less than in 6 months or something like this. And everybody understands that if the conflict, and not the conflict, but if the Strait of Hormuz is being blocked for another 6 months, this can lead to unpredictable consequences for the global economy, because the Iranians are keeping attacking the territories of the Middle East states. Today we received the report that the Iranians once again attacked the state of Bahrain. We continue receiving reports about attacks in the direction of Israel. We continue receiving updates and videos of how the Iranians are launching their missiles in the direction of the Middle East states. And of course, the coalition continue bombing and attacking the state of Iran itself, and most likely in coming days, the United States of America will intensify their attacks and they will try to destroy power plants, industrial zones, and so on. Maybe after this attack, they will leave this territory. But one thing is clear, that the Iranians will strike back, and they will attack the similar objects on the Church of the Middle East states. Most likely they will attack United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and all these attacks will lead to higher oil prices. And that's it for today. The Military with Summary channel reminds that we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.